So, my question now is what does bullying actually do to a child who's being victimized in their body, their grades, and their mental health?
Absolutely. As we can see, we know that for sure there are health consequences. And one of the primary reason that this is considered a health crisis. So there's a range of possible outcomes, of course, in terms of bullying and the effects it has. And a lot of it can depend on the age it happens at, the frequency with which it happens, and of course, the type of bullying. And that can obviously affect sort of the results. And there's they call it a real dose response connection, right? So the amount of it that directly relates to sort of the response or the outcomes, how severe the outcomes, excuse me, are. But they do group the consequences of bullying into three sort of broad categories for us to better understand. And that is that there are educational consequences that happen during childhood and adolescence. There are health consequences during both childhood and adolescence as well, and all consequences during adulthood, even, right? And so those are the kind of the three main categories, the three main consequences that we look at when we see the effects of bullying. So the first one being educational consequences during childhood and adolescence. Well, going to impact your schoolwork, right? If you are going to school and you don't feel safe and you don't feel comfortable there, when you're there, you are not thinking about schoolwork. You are not thinking about your performance on schoolwork. You are anxious about if you are going to be attacked, if you are going to be harmed. You are not confident. You lose your confidence. And we all know, especially as educators, a big part of learning is your self-confidence and having that confidence to try and do and make mistakes. And when you're already feeling like you are being attacked or pointed out or cornered out, then you are certainly not going to step up in terms of academics. That is not where you're able to even put your focus and emotion. And of course, you don't want to go to school, right? If you know that you are going to go to school and you're going to be harmed and it's not safe, children who are victims of bullying tend to miss school a lot more. They come up with a lot of what they say actually are psychosomatic, actual physical health consequences, whether it's like a stomach ache, whether it's aches and pains here that are sort of mysterious, but it's all, reasons, of course. And, our body can do that. Our mind is powerful and create things in our body and give us reasons to be. We can't do that. We can't go and face that, and put it on these sort of physical consequences as well. So that you are going to be scoring lower in tests when you are not feeling confident academically, when you're not feeling safe at school. And we find that test scores of bullied children are 2.1% lower in mathematics, 2.5% or 2.5% lower in reading than non-bullied children. And compared with children that are never or almost never bullied, average learning achievement scores were 2 points right, in children bullied monthly and 7.5% lower in children bullied weekly. So there is, again, we see that then dose response relationship. If it's more frequent, it's going to have a greater impact. And that is they've done this globally. That was seen both in low income and high income areas or countries. Then, of course, the actual sort of some of the health issues that we see, you have a lot of mental health and a lot of social health issues, obviously, inability to develop healthy relationships, right? In adolescence and to continue on. They don't have those skills. They haven't been able to, do that. They don't feel safe with other people. So obviously it's going to affect their social relationships, which then consequently can affect their mental health relationships. You feel isolated, you feel alone, you don't have peers to turn to. And that continues, that can continue again, depending on the frequency, the age, but certainly we find that that continues then into adulthood because there is no foundation. There is no basis for you of how to do that in a healthy way, of having people to be able to show you how to do that. And so, all of those things can lead to then, of course, depression, right? In early adulthood, again, isolation and depression among that. And, that's again across the board, both men, women, boys, girls, you're going to see that for sure. And surprisingly, as I said, again, like with an adolescence, a lot of times you see these consequences continue into adulthood way into age 50, right? So it impacts their ability to have either, partners, significant, intimate relationships, no friendships. It's harder for them to achieve in work and work environments because again, that's a big social environment. So a lot of times, they're not successful in that. And then there's, they have socioeconomically, they don't have success. And it is something that we see can clearly impact a child's entire life all the way through adulthood.
Thank you for listening to the Willow Kids podcast.